At the Royal United Services Institute. Thanks very much for coming in. So what do you think the significance is of them staying on at this stage?
Well, it can be promising or not promising. The fact that so many diplomatic heavyweights are in Vienna suggests that a deal is either in the works or that more senior people are need to be brought in because they're close to a solution. At the same time, it can be a negative sign. It's been quite clearly seen that Mr. Zarif was contemplating going back to Iran to discuss the negotiations with the Supreme Leader. Many people foresaw the idea that a trip back to Tehran would suggest that a deal was close and he needed final approval. The fact that he's not going has got some analysts thinking that maybe a deal is nowhere to be had.
So what are the likely outcomes in your view? Have you got a couple of scenarios that you could paint for us?
Of course, one of three things is going to happen. Firstly, the negotiators could be successful in reaching a comprehensive arrangement, which all the political sticking points are solved, and then it moves on to the discussion of implementation. The worst scenario, as far as the negotiators are concerned, is that they could simply extend the interim agreement that's in place. That would probably be quite a negative result because officials in Washington, particularly the newly elected Republican congressman, have said there'll be more sanctions if a finished deal isn't reached this time. The most likely option is probably a framework agreement, which John Kerry hinted at today, in which the parties would set out the areas in which they agree in principle and leave the experts to discuss the details in the coming days.
And what do you think the biggest stumbling block is? I mean, presumably with any deal, there's always going to be last-minute brinkmanship, and that's how deals come about, isn't it? But what do you think the biggest stumbling blocks are in this case?
Three main stumbling blocks. First of all is the question over how many centrifuges Iran is going to be able to hold in place. It currently has 18,000 in total, but only 10,000 of which are operational. The United States would like to bring that down to something around 4,500. The Iranians are sticking on this point. They say they'd rather have nothing lower than 8,000. The second question is going to be the sequencing of the sanctions and the sanctions relief. The Iranians say that they would like to see sanctions relief almost instantly the moment that a deal is reached as a sign of good faith. The American position and that of the P5+1 is that sanctions should be unfolded and unwound over time as Iran complies and meets its agreements. And the final issue is going to be the extent of the inspections that the IAEA will conduct to ensure that Iran, whilst it has a civilian nuclear program under the terms of the deal, is not conducting any weaponization activity to militarize the nuclear program that it will be allowed to have in place.
OK, Timothy Stafford, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Coming up this news hour, Bahrain's main opposition urges people to boycott Saturday's vote. No roads, running water or electricity. This is the Choco region of Colombia, where the rebel kidnap of a general has thrown peace talks into doubt. And in sport, find out who had the psychological advantage after practice for Sunday's season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.